Today's webinar is about business succession, but we have a fantastic lineup for you. My name is Tammy Huang. I am with Invest in Hamilton, also known as the City of Hamilton in economic development. I am super excited to be here, and today we have three amazing speakers to speak to you about business succession. But today I'm going to start in sort of reverse order in terms of the speakers. So I would like to introduce to you our hosts, our sort of Zoom host for today, Elizabeth Long from Long Mangoji. They are a law firm in Toronto that help with immigration, and they have been an amazing resource. Then we also have Agnes Land. She is the Director of Business Development at Change Connect. Agnes, just give a quick little wave. Fantastic. And then we also have April Harbottle, who is the Managing Director of Transition Architects. April, quick wave. Fantastic. So today, before we get started, I wanted to make sure that I introduced the City of Hamilton a little bit before we actually get started. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here. All right, everyone, can you guys see that? Give a thumbs up to our panelists. Fantastic. So today I wanted to introduce to you the City of Hamilton. It's a quick little overview, and really it's just a chance to let you guys know about some of the awesome things about the city before we get started on our business succession, getting your business ready for sale and transition. So the City of Hamilton, we have lots of different services, but my department is the Economic Development Office, and we're the central point for all investment activity within the city. We are geared towards startup companies, small, medium businesses, foreign direct investment, corporate relocation, and the expansion and retention of existing businesses. So it's all things when it comes to small business related and industry, commercial and industrial in the City of Hamilton. So think of us as kind of like your concierge to the City of Hamilton. We'll get you connected into some of the amazing resources at City Hall, but at the same time, it's really around getting you connected into the greater community of the City of Hamilton. Some fast facts about the City of Hamilton: we are the 9th largest regional economy in Canada, also the 5th in Ontario. So we're one of those like big little cities. We are located right beside the Toronto area. We're approximately 536,000, give or take. That was from our last 2016 census, but we're growing because we've actually seen a lot of movement from Toronto coming into Hamilton. In terms of the business climate and and the opportunity for doing business in Hamilton, we have all 4 modes of transportation, including road, rail, international airport, and international port. It's pretty cool to be able to say that we've got one of Canada's busiest cargo airports. So if you think about, as a business, moving your stuff from international through to Canada, if you pump it through someplace like Toronto Pearson, you know it's going to get stuck in traffic. So the idea is that we're super proud of our international airport. It's moving a ton of cargo, especially if you're buying a lot of stuff off of Amazon these days. And then we've also got the busiest port outside of Toronto. So it's pretty amazing to have these 2 assets in our backyard. We also have some of the best academic institutions. McMaster University has consistently ranked in the top 75 in the world. Mohawk College is also considered one of the best research-intensive colleges in all of Canada. So we're very proud of our academic institutions. And Hamilton is one of Canada's most diversified economies. As you can see, Hamilton's kind of at the toe of Lake Ontario, which is at the very sort of end of Lake Ontario. We're 60 minutes from major markets, so 60 minutes from Toronto, 60 minutes from the US market, and 60 minutes from Kitchener-Waterloo. We do have a catchment of a fairly large market size. So inside of a 2-hour radius, we have access to almost 8 million people. So it's pretty awesome to be able to say that geographically we are in one of the densest economic regions, and we also have great connectivity into a lot of these different marketplaces. We also have access to significant talent. We have been considered the top tech talent in Canada recently. And we've been seeing significant increases in some of our technology talent as well as workers in Hamilton. As I mentioned before, we are one of the most diversified economies, which really means that we actually have access to a lot of different industries and a lot of different types of businesses. We're not constrained to just one type of business, whereas in the past, we would have been considered maybe Steel Town, where we did a lot of advanced manufacturing, but now we're really part of the technology hub. We also have a significant and thriving life sciences sector, so we're very excited about a lot of the opportunities coming our way. Speaking of, our key industry sectors include advanced manufacturing, agriculture and food processing, the creative and cultural industries, finance, insurance, real estate, goods movement, digital, life sciences, and tourism. We do have a significant suite of financial incentives, and all of those I can easily speak to you about should you want to move your business or set up your business here in Hamilton. We also have a soft landing program, and that's geared towards any international firms that are interested in exploring Canada and North America as a potential landing ground for their business. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of test the marketplace before you actually set down your business. We are also very deeply connected into the community, and these include some of the different community partners that we have. Those include chambers of commerce, our academic institutions, and different working groups that include the Immigration Partnership Council and Workforce Planning. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for really being here. But again, the real meat and potatoes of this is really about the next three speakers. But if you'd like to get a hold of me, that's my contact information. And I'm working from home, so there's a lot of opportunity to send me an email, and my email is always open. So I really hope that you guys reach out and actually find out more about investing and starting your business here in Hamilton. But now I would like to share with you, let me stop sharing. Fantastic. I would really like the opportunity now to introduce our next speaker. And as housekeeping right now, before I do that, is that if you have any questions, make sure that you either drop it in the chat, or there is a Q&A function at the very bottom center of your screen. So just put in your question into the Q&A, and we'll get to them when we get at the very end of each of the presentations. And then at the very end of our webinar, we're going to have an opportunity to do some open Q&A with the rest of our panelists. But now it is my pleasure to introduce to you April Harbottle, who is the Managing Director of Transition Architects. April, take it away.
Hi, thank you for that, and welcome to our presentation. Thanks. So wanted to tell you a little bit about Transition Architects and how we got started. It's been operating for a couple of years now, and that it came about because I spent 20 years in commercial banking and corporate banking, and then several more years in mergers and acquisition, and realized there was a gap in the market, and that was that a lot of businesses were not ready for sale when they went to a broker to be sold. They needed some work to actually get ready for that sale. So I'm going to just keep moving here, sorry. Just checking. Okay, so yeah, what we found often is that business owners are so busy working on their businesses or in their businesses that they weren't really having the time to work on their business. So to be looking at the strategic side of the business in that getting prepared to sell. And that should always be kind of front of mind, is that it's your biggest investment in time and money often, and to be always looking at what that value is. Like if you have investments, you check the value. If your business is your investment, then you should be checking the value of that on a regular basis so that you know what that means to you on a personal level. to be able to sit down and look at it from a buyer's perspective is something that nobody else has been offering at this point in time, or very few options. I mean, you might get that from an accounting firm, you might get it from maybe a law office would have a little bit of input, but this is approaching it from a buyer's perspective because I'm also selling businesses as well. So I know what they're looking for. So what we do at Transition Architects is we come in and we do a full assessment of your business up front, and we focus on the small, medium businesses, and we look at ways to assess the value today from a buyer's perspective. We also come up with ways that you could improve the business, in that we would identify areas that would make it more attractive to buyers, or areas that would increase the value. And we do that type of an assessment up front. And then we would talk through what transition options are available for you. Lots of times in small business, I mean, just an outright sale is not an option because there's a lot of dependency on the owner and other risk factors. So we would look at a multiple of transition options that are available. And I'm going to get into more detail a little further on what those could be. And then we would put together a summary profile for you, which would help you be able to explain the beauty and the success factors of your business, as well as what the risks are and how they've been mitigated. And through all of that, we come up with something, I call it a living will. You could call it a playbook, you can call it a strategy, but basically, if in a worst case scenario, if something happened to the owner, that you would know what the options were at that point and what the best approach would be to transition that business. So those are some of the key outcomes, and then at a high level, and so now I can share some of the details. So we offer they're similar services, but they're different at the same time. So we do transition advisory, succession planning, and then we also do actual selling your business. So when the business is ready for sale, we'll do that as well. So transition advisory work is what I was speaking to at the beginning, where we're looking at the strategies to maximize your company value and attractiveness. And since I've worked as a business broker for many years, I've seen a number of situations where businesses were listed for sale when they were not showing at their best. I had one business that was basically doing 30% of their sales in cash. And when they went to sell the business, there's no way that the value a buyer would pay would be anywhere close to that. So they were missing out on that potential value at sale because the financial statements didn't show it. And that's one of many things that could be happening if you're not maximizing because everybody's going to look at the financial statements, and the details have to be there to support the value. So you have to get that true value showing there. So I have myself and a team of other transition architects, I call them, because we're multidisciplinary. I mean, there is no criteria or certification to be a transition architect. It's a blend of accounting skills, banking skills, mergers and acquisition skills, negotiation skills, and they all come together to help you do that assessment and then look for creative solutions which will help you transition your business when the time is right. And we call that unlocking the value of your business, because businesses is really not a liquid asset. It's not like having it. There's value, but it's not like cash in the bank that you can just pull out at a minute's notice. I mean, it's illiquid in that it can take you several years to sell a business. And sometimes you're not even that lucky to sell them, because you have to find a buyer, you have to be able to promote the value of your business, and then come up with terms that are suitable for both. I just sold a business last week. Beautiful, big business, $10 million and actually $14 million in sales. And it took us over a year and a half to find a buyer, negotiate terms, and then be able to successfully close on that sale. and sometimes the smaller businesses take longer because it's a little harder to find the right buyers. So the succession support is similar, obviously, but it's also helping as far as looking at legacy issues. So, you know, a lot of business operators have got in their head that it would be great if their son or their daughter or their niece or someone took over for them. And that is a great option if they have the right skills and if they have the right attitude and commitment to the business. And in some ways, it's higher risk. In a scenario that I'm just dealing with now, very strong business that I'm working with, and an owner that's in his 60s, and he has to figure out an option. He recognizes that, and his son is active in the business, but he's more of a technician. Like he has the skills. It's a trades business, and he has the skills in that area, but he doesn't have the management strength. And he knows that if he sold the business to his son would be overwhelmed with the management side and the regulatory side and the financial side and all those other things. And also he would be risking his retirement fund because, you know, selling the business and getting some cash up front makes sure that he's got that retirement money sitting aside for him. That risk has gone for him, whereas selling it to someone and taking maybe years to get paid off is a higher risk strategy. So the scenario that we've worked out to allow him still to have a succession opportunity, but also to minimize his personal risks, was we've found a partner for him that's going to come in and buy 80% of the business. And that 80% will support, the financial support, all the other oversight that's needed to continue to grow and be successful. But his son is able to come in and either buy, or maybe he might end up giving him the 20% of the business so that he still gets to be engaged in the business. So it was a great solution for succession planning. It met the needs of the second generation, but it also meets the needs of the owner, who was worried about losing out on the financial benefits of having a very successful business for 25 years. So that was one of the creative solutions that we were able to come up with. But when you've gone through the process of assessing the value, figuring out, making sure your company looks as good as it can, I would call that staging, then we can go to market and look for buyers for you. And we do that through multiple networks and channels. So I did say I was going to speak a little bit about potential different options that you could be looking at instead of a straight sale of your business, which at the bottom here, I've got, you could be looking at deferred buyouts, succession we spoke about, hire your buyer strategies, which is another interesting option, management buyouts, or new partnerships as potential options for transition. This is on my website. It's tips. I don't think I have time to go through them, but I'm starting to put some good stories on there, including tips how to maximize the value of your business and how to make sure it shows well. And that's like we talk about share sales, asset sales, planning in advance, and making sure your financial statements look as good as they possibly can. So all that information's on my website, as well as I've got a calculator on there on a simplified way to value your business. You know, we look at things, they're accounting terms, but EBITDA, normalized EBITDA, things like that. So I've got good explanations on there for you to go and figure that out on your own. And then you can come to us if you need a little extra help with that. So on that note, I think my time is up, and I will hand over to Agnes, who's going to talk about how to actually get the value creation going in their business.
And we'll also be sending out the slides, right, Tammy? So we'll for sure send those out to you guys as well.
Okay, great.
So before we move to Agnes, there was one question that came in. Patient asked, typically, how long would the transition process take before business is ready for sale?
So it really does depend on what shape they're in today. I mean, I've come into businesses where they think they have a lot of work to do, but once we do the assessment and walk through it, sometimes they're in really good shape. Like, I actually feel that a lot of the people that actually know or reach out to me, they've already done a lot of the planning, and in many cases they're just looking for confirmation of that. So, the last few I've done, I mean, within a few months, we're basically ready to go to market. But if there are other issues out there, sometimes it could take a couple of years, because you do need to have the financial piece showing in your statements for at least a couple of years before a buyer is going to be able to give you that increased value. So I'd say within at least 2 years is a good kind of rule of thumb to use.
Excellent.
Yep.
How do your fees work, April?
Yeah, so I charge a flat fee up front, and it does depend on the complexity, but lots of times with the smaller deals, I mean, sometimes it's around $2,500, but it does depend on the complexity. And then that would get you the assessment and the value and all of that upfront work. And then if you wanted to go to market, we would be looking at kind of a monthly retainer and then a success fee at the end. And that would be all negotiated after step one.
Thank you so much, April.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask you to stop sharing your screen,
Okay.
and we'll move on to Agnes Land. So Agnes, please take it away.
Great. So my part here today is really to, I would be considered one of April's, what she called transition architect, that help you to get yourself ready before the sale. And in this, I'm going to break it down into nitty-gritty details that we have to go through. And that sort of goes back to the last question of how long is the runway? How long is the runway is how many check marks you have in the checklist, right? If you have more to do, there's a longer runway versus not. So my piece obviously is about maximizing your value. And I always use this particular illustration to show what I'm about to. I have a engineering background, so this speaks to me personally. Is you have two guys standing there, right? One guy sees the skyscraper that will change the way that the earth move in the future, and how we look at building and building science and all the technology and all the green technology that we are putting in there. The other guy sees a flat piece of land. He sees dirt, right? And what this process really is about in terms of getting you gearing toward seeing someone like April is, how can we bridge the vision? How can we bridge that green LED, green building, smart building, all that vision with someone that only sees dirt? Like we're trying to come and make the two visions become one. That's when you maximize what you have to offer. Because if your vision is still somewhere that is a little different than what the buyer's vision is from that perspective, you won't be able to maximize the value that you will get for your business. It is about helping them see what you see, ultimately, at the end of the day. So from that standpoint, we go into business, we do an assessment chart as well, and I plan to go through that in detail with you guys a little bit today to get a sense. But have you identified what the current state look like, and or plan for how to stabilize the business operation, right? Have you identified what the current state look like and the plan to stabilize the longevity of the organization? Both of those are equally important, right? Just because, and going back to what April said, we're as business owners so busy working in the business, you might not be working on the business. And my line one here is in the business, but line two is on the business, and those are equally as important to the buyer, whether you have that vision and whether you have laid the foundation of that vision. Obviously, going back, if your financials are not up in a state that makes sense for people to read, they're going to have a harder time understanding your package and perspective. So there is some work there to be done from an administrative perspective to make you look pretty. It is about the packaging. And last but not least, any additional element that might be necessary that comes along with this, right? Whether perhaps there is a skill set that's necessary, or whether there is some additional trade secrets, whether there's an IP in the works. So a lot of other things that you might also want to put in here, so that going back, they see what you see, right? Because you think the world of your business, and the key really, it is a buy and sell process, right? You're still trying, like any of your buy and sell process to anyone else in the business, you still want to provide a value, and they have to see what you bring to the table. Internally, we broke it down into 4 different categories that we analyze. The first being operations, and how, whether that is structured, whether without you, the organization will operationally would still carry on their day-to-day work and be able to attract revenue and be able to fulfill any sales orders seamlessly without your presence. Second category is your organization category. In terms of, once you leave or once you exit the business, and or having to stay behind for a couple of years, either way, whether the organization itself would be stable. Do you have, very, very simple stuff like an org chart? Can employees see a progression in their career? Are there defined job description instead of one person doing 7 jobs and but also they are not accountable to any, because their job, the job title right now is head of operations, right? So a lot of that, as performance reviews, KPIs, getting them a history of measuring up to their target. What does that look like? Organize, like whether the organization is organized. Third, of course, is your financials. Just because you're making, going back to what April said earlier, 30% of your cash, the deal could be coming in cash. It's possible depending on what deal you're talking about. So how is that accountable? How is that accounted for in your package? And is there accounted for in your package? We always talk about, especially with my 100% or family-owned businesses, you perhaps could be, diverting some of your spending through that book. How do you normalize that financial package in order for it to be a true statement that reflects your business dealings? A lot of that has to be done. So we go through with our clients, the various different category in here, and I think I have a bit of time, so I can go through at a high level some of the key items that might make sense here. So let me switch over to another worksheet so that you guys can see. So far, so good, everyone. Can you guys give me a thumbs up or some sort of a comment, so it allows me to know that I'm on point? Okay, I am keeping an eye on chat, so if you guys need anything, let me know. So the first section is all around operations. And in terms of operations, we're talking about, do you have an operations manual, right? Company specific information, job descriptions, duties, expected results. In terms of mission vision, this is one that is very important to me. A lot of my owners that we work with, they don't have an updated business plan. They did one business plan 20 years ago, and that's it, right? Business plan needs to be updated every 18 months to reflect the current situation. And it's an easier sell for April when the prospective buyer sees the progression of your business as well. So, and that there's considerable consideration around, what is your SWOT, your strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat every 18 months, so that you can account and course correct in a way that makes sense. And they can see, the key is to see that progression, right? Because you didn't get here, it took 20 years to get here, but you need storytelling, right? If you're trying to get someone to buy into your business, they understand where you're from, what your value is, and how you create value to begin with. So some of the mission and vision and what that stands for, obviously clean documentation of any key minutes or general, annual general meetings. If you guys have a shop and warehouse, or the walkthrough has to be comfortable. It doesn't have to be pristine and dustless, but it definitely has to look like it's an operating plan that allows for efficiency. Any historical tracking of KPI, the planned KPI, and obviously the achievement in terms of you hitting that KPI. Cleaning up any operation issues, whether there's any non-performance, any unsatisfied employees, unsatisfied supplier, slow non-moving items. And we'll leave the ISO. Organization chart, in terms of that is, in terms of organization, do we have an organization chart? Do we have clear reporting lines? Do we have the right people in the right position? Have we shown a history of the senior management working on the business and not just in the business? Clear definition of the owner's role, because if you want to be replaceable, then you have to have your box clearly defined so you could be replaceable, right? The last thing someone want to buy is, oh, you were, the president and also the general manager, but also the head of R&D, and also, but then you only, on the org chart, only sits as the president. You're not making the transition easy for anybody. Business plan review on a regular basis, SWOT. You want to make a plan, fire yourself, I always say. And then you want to, especially if we're talking about 2 years runway, you want to start delegating. You want to understand and delegate and empower your staff to do as much so that it becomes a smoother transition. Tammy's telling me I don't have any time left. So if you guys do want to chat about this, feel free to message me at the end. And in case, I know we'll send out the deck, but here is my contact information for everyone's.
Wonderful. 38 seconds left, Agnes. That was really good. So we do have a couple of questions before we move off to chat with Elizabeth. So Vince is asking, in your experience for a service company where the EBITDA multipliers are generally well developed, how much more complex is a transaction if IP is involved? And so currently they don't have any patent pending or trademark or anything like that.
So Vince, I would obviously suggest you get your IP. It's not an easy process, and there is a value put on IP. So formalized is better than not formalized. And when people buy IPs, right, it's tough to say you have the IP, but then what? It becomes just a working, it's sort of like your way of working. I know exactly what you do for your business. So I think there's room for doing IP. And applying for that. There is a value placed with IP or without. So that's why my suggestion is to go through that and to get that, to get your IP patented can take up to 18 months. So I would start that right away.
So 2 more questions. One is from Desmond. Given you want to show business progression, how do you see COVID results being reflected in future values and sales?
Yes. So I was just talking to a client this morning about the same thing. What we ended up doing with their perspectives is we actually added a section around COVID, or they added a section around COVID, which I think is important. Like I said, a lot of this is around storytelling, right? So everyone is experiencing COVID, so it's not like you're alone, right? So it is a matter of just putting that section in and how you plan to recover, or what is the timeline around that, right? Because if your business isn't, there is definitely a hiccup, same as we were talking about a hiccup around 9/11, right? So we are hoping it will recover in time, but you just have to explain that time in a global pandemic is something that someone would understand. I can tell you though, you will likely make some adjustments to maybe the whole idea of what you have to make them see what you see, right? So now, to be realistic, now because of COVID, it's harder to convince someone to see, to see what you see, because now they see this COVID in front of them. But good seasoned investor will understand that this is just a hiccup of many that will, due to economy, and it will come. So but it is around the story around it.
I'd like
question.
to maybe add to that a little bit, because I've been at a couple of deals that have been impacted by COVID. I had 2 deals that were supposed to close, one in May and one in June, and one closed 3 days ago. So there was a 5-month delay, and the other one, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. What happened with the other one, and this is a big COVID related situation, is the banking and the financing terms are changing significantly. So my second deal, the bank has retracted on the initial approval. So they had a term sheet, which isn't a final commitment, but they've changed their authorization, and it's thrown a real glitch into the deal, because now they're, in this scenario, they're almost $100,000 short in the financing requirements. And it's ended up that they're asking the seller to provide that as a different, to make up the shortfall. So certainly financing is being heavily impacted by COVID. The banks are somewhat uncertain what the future is. So their terms and their approvals have been, it's changing every day too. So I'm saying it's uncertain, but it's changing. So it's hard. That's causing a whole extra degree of confusion and struggle to get a deal done. But I will say the companies that have fared well through COVID, and fortunately both of these deals they were in trades and serve, not like, so one's mill writing, one's HVAC, so they're essential services. And the buyers have felt that they did well, and because they did well, they're thinking this is the best stress test ever. And so the buyers have stayed committed to the deal, which is actually really kind of an exciting way to look at it. Instead of being, terrified by the uncertainty, they're recognizing that these particular business offerings are so essential that they will be, needed kind of forever, sort of thing. So
thank you so much, April and Agnes. This is awesome. And I think that we should leave a lot more of this discussion towards the very end. I'd really like to move on now to Elizabeth Long from Long Mangoji. And so Elizabeth, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. Today, what I'm going to talk about is really talking about it from the perspective of the buyer. Specifically, I'm talking about it from the perspective of the international buyer. We have a lot of misconceptions about international buyers. People think, all they need to do is buy a house. Sometimes people say, or, all they need to do is just, put some money in there and they can immigrate. And, I just need to offer them something and they'll be able to immigrate, and they're going to invest whatever I need them to invest in my business. That is absolutely not true. And international investors are good buyers in that a lot of times they are interested in SMEs, which may be difficult to find, Canadian buyers. I understand there is a lot of a lack in the Canadian market for buyers in the SME market, but a lot of international buyers are interested in that market. International buyers are also, they may already have a lot of funding, and they are able to come in and provide all of the funding without perhaps going to the banks and seeking additional funding to buy the businesses. However, international buyers, they come also, especially if immigration is involved, they come with a whole set of challenges because they have to meet immigration requirements. And so today, what I'm going to be talking about are the immigration requirements from the international buyer's sense of point of view, so that you can understand where they're coming from. And if you wanted to attract international investors, then you can understand what you need to do in order to structure your business deal to attract them. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is work permits. It's not necessarily about immigrating, getting the permanent residence right away. The reason why I am starting with work permits is the Canadian immigration system has been moving in the past few years towards making the international entrepreneurs prove that they will actually open up a business and be actively involved in opening up the business before they can actually get permanent residence. So it's not like they can just buy a house, or they can even just plop down, you know, and passively invest in your business and they can get immigration. Not true at all. It's all about active participation in management of the business. With the work permits, the applicant can legally work in Canada. The spouse can be eligible for an open work permit, and dependent children can attend the public school without paying tuition fees, and the entire family is eligible for OHIP. So with the work permit, they are able to settle into Canada initially to do the work, and then move on to get permanent residence. I'm just going to quickly touch on some of the ways that they can get work permits. One of the ways is the intra-company transferee category. And this is where if they have an overseas company, and that overseas company and a Canadian company have a relationship. It's majority owned relationship. Canadian company owns at least 51%, or vice versa. It could be sister relationships, but whatever it is majority owned. So this is where they are going to either buy the majority share or 100% of your company, to 100% of your company. If you're not ready to sell 100% and you just want to take on an investor, there are other ways that we can structure the deal. But essentially, for them to get the work permit to transfer under this particular category, this relationship has to be there. And they, as long as they've worked overseas for at least 1 year, and they come under one of the two different categories. One is the senior manager, executive manager. This is where most of the heads of the company, if they own their own company, et cetera, that would be where they're coming from. There's also another level for specialized knowledge workers. These are employees who have technical specializations in and knowledge in the work from overseas, and they are going to bring them to Canada. And we can get work permits for them. The first work permit is often issued for 1 year if it's a sort of a startup situation, because they want the person to show that they're actually going to be managing a business after a year. But we can extend the work permits for the executive managers to 7 years and the specialized knowledge workers to 5 years. So this gives them an ability to settle temporarily in Canada, and then we move on to permanent residence afterwards. Another work permit is the owner-operator LMIA. So this is one where there doesn't have to be a particular relationship to an overseas company. They can just come here, start a business or buy a business, and they own at least 51% of the company personally for themselves. And they have to demonstrate that the work will result in job creation. So it's going to create jobs for Canadians. They have to show that the company can support itself to pay the revenue, with the revenues for themselves and for the applicants. And very importantly, they have to show that the business is actively engaged. So it's no longer that you can just present a business plan and that's enough. That's why a lot of investors, they're interested in buying good businesses that have already been in business for a while. This helps them to obtain the LMIA, and of course, it will help them later on to be able to sustain and run the business afterwards if they're taking over a good business that's already running. Now, when we move to permanent residence, you'll see that oftentimes there are certain things that if they've done the work, they've purchased the business, that it will help them towards permanent residence. So first of all, the first category we talk about for most people overseas, you'll hear the words express entry. This is probably the main category that most people are talking about overseas. It's for skilled workers. And normally what they do is they do a scoring where they look at your age, your work experience, your ability to speak in English or French, your education. And a lot of times, it's funny, I did a scoring. Sometimes we'll do a scoring on ourselves, right? And if we do a scoring on myself, for example, I'm in my 40s, so already the points have gone down. Even though my English is good, I don't speak French. I, have a lot of degrees, but the fact that, my work experience in Canada is self-employed work, it doesn't count, etc. And to say I actually would not score well on this exam. And most of people I know who are in the 40s who have done tremendous work with their business overseas will not score well on this, because you can, by the time you reach your 30s, it's no longer a happy birthday anymore. Every day, every year that you reach another year in your 30s, it goes down by 5 points. By the time you're 40s, it goes fast slide to, minus 10 points, minus 11 points. And so in the end, someone in their 40s may have 0 points compared to someone in their 20s who has 110 points, right? So it's not competitive anymore. Now, how do we make it competitive for people who have all those skills and who want to open up businesses in Canada? If they have a work permit, this is where that's a LMIA, or if they have an intra-company transferee, that's an employer-specific work permit, that will give them either 50 points or 200 points if they're executive managers. And they also do have to pass the English or French exam to a certain level, but this ability to get the LMIA or the intra-company transferee work permit, employer-specific work permits, will give them a huge boost to allow them to get enough points for express entry. The second way that we look at is if someone is opening up an innovative business in Canada, they have to first, though, qualify and with a incubator, angel investor group, or venture capital group. That's another way for them to do it. And the third way is for them to go through the OIMP entrepreneur category. I just wanted to mention that Hamilton is one of my favorite cities to bring my clients to. Tabby knows, I introduced a lot of people to her, because it is outside of the GTA. If they are investing in the GTA, the amount is $600,000. If they are investing outside of the GTA, the amount goes down to 1/3 of that amount, it's just $200,000. There's a whole other process, and the process itself to get to permanent residence can take up to 4 years. In the beginning, they have to propose a business plan, and then afterwards, they have to show that they're going to run the business successfully and after a year or so, year and a half or so, we have an assessment, and then we can then apply for permanent residence if they pass that assessment. So as you can see from here, it's not just a matter of passive investment. They really do have to really put in the work to run the business successfully. So here are some of my tips about how to attract investment to your business. If you want to find an investor who's going to be joining you in your business, you need them to be able to work on an active basis, okay? If you wanted to attract someone who's going to buy it over, they can't be doing it on a passive basis if they want to immigrate. Secondly, when you're structuring the deal, it's not the same as structuring it with a Canadian. You have to understand what it is that they need in order, from an immigration perspective, in order to do it successfully. Because if they can't immigrate, they can't be here to run the business. It is of no use to anybody. So that has to be taken into account. And third is what I would like to suggest is, if you can provide in the deal an offer to train them, to provide them with support, provide them with their contacts, that really makes the deal sweeter. Because, it's one thing to have someone new, from within the country who already understands the business environment, the legal structures, and have the contacts there to take over, compared to someone who's coming from a brand new place, who really does not know what is here. If you can provide that amount of support for them, I think that really would make it very attractive to them. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, here are my contact information.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That's a ton of information, guys. And the fact is we're going to send you guys all of the slide decks, and that way you have an opportunity to see the information a little closer and digest it at your own rate. I did want to go back and ask the last question that Patience asked, which was actually directed towards Agnes. Do you assist in creating some of these items if they are not readily available? Example, the business plan, org plan, etc. Yes. Short answer, yes.
Yes, I mean, that's the whole point of because it is a longer process than most people think. Like some of our clients, they're you know, they run a very, you know, well-run business because they've been working in for 20 years, right, or 5 years, whatever it is, and everything runs smoothly. But if you think, or if you were transitioning to someone else, that's where the hiccup is. If you believe there's a hiccup there, then there is some work to be done before handing it to April.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm just doing a quick little check to see if there's any more chats or Q&As. I don't see any, so I'm going to do a quick little share screen just so that you guys can see my screen really quick like this. So wait, there we go. That way you guys can see very quickly the contact information for all of our panelists and our speakers for today. Just doing a quick time check. It is now 12:58. So I think we've done really well, guys, about making sure that we're inside of that 1 hour webinar. We really hope that this has been very valuable, and we are always at your service. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be able to send out these slide decks again.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.